පෙරණ පද්ධතියක් ලබා දීම සඳහා වැඩ ඇරඹේ. කම්මැත්ත රට නගන ජන පෞර.
A very good evening to all our viewers. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Yuki here. Before we head into your stories in detail, let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
To increase from the 5th of January, minimum fare increased to 17 rupees. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves given boost after $1.5 billion added to the total reserves. Reveal the manner in which the reserves were increased. Dr. Harsha Deshallah demands the government.
Lakshman mahathya sankarapu eka cash karada.
Gazette on prohibition of obscene publications invalidated. Bill to be resubmitted. There are ample stocks of rice in the market. Stocks that were stagnant at the port to be released to the market, says Minister Bandula. Vimal, Vasudeva and Gammampila to remain in the government, says Minister Vasudeva Nanayakara. Is there a conspiracy in place to oust the Prime Minister? Venerable Muruttettuwe Anandathera raises concerns.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Sri Lanka emerged victorious in the international arena on 2 occasions today. A Sri Lankan won the Queen of World Tourism 2021, while the Sri Lankan contingent at the 2021 Asia Powerlifting Championship bagged 14 gold medals.
6 athletes represented Sri Lanka in the championship. Shinoki Deshallah of Sri Lanka, who competed in the women's junior category of the 47kg weight class, clinching 4 gold medals, took centre stage in Sri Lanka's overall feat.
I was able to win all 3 gold medals in the 3 categories of my event. Along with all these achievements, I was able to break the Sri Lankan record that was set by me as well.
Untitled of Sri Lanka competed in the men's open 120kg weight class and managed to bag 1 gold and 2 bronze medals. Suren Pereira, who competed in the men's open 59kg weight class, won 3 gold medals and 1 silver medal. As the athletes who competed in the senior category of the championship, Motilal Jayatilaka won 4 gold medals, Chandana Tilakaratne won 1 gold medal and 3 silver medals, and Hiran Fernando won 1 silver.
Team Sri Lanka managed to win 14 gold medals, 4 silver medals and 3 gold medals. I was able to win the Asian Championship for the 5th time today.
2021 Asian Powerlifting Championship was held in Istanbul, Turkey, with the participation of athletes from 22 nations. Sri Lanka's Nalisha Banu was crowned the Queen of World Tourism 2021 in the Philippines. She also won the People's Choice Award at the pageant and the Special Award for Best in Talent. Competing alongside 30 countries, the 22-year-old Nalisha Banu was crowned as the Queen of World Tourism 2021 following her colourful performance of Angampura and traditional Guinea-Kelly dance. Ecuador and Canada were placed runners-up. This is the first time that Sri Lanka has won the crown, despite having previously placed third at the Miss World pageant.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid his final respects to the late Venerable Buddhangala Anandathera today.
The mortal remains of Venerable Buddhangala Anandathera were laid in honour at the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress in Bauddha Lokamavata, Colombo 7. Venerable Buddhangala Anandathera had served in the army as a Major General before he was ordained as a priest. Former President Maithripala Sirisena paid his last respects to the Thera today. The late Thera's remains will be moved to the Buddhangala Aranya Senasana in Ampara.
Army Commander General Shavendra Silva says the military will be able to overcome the challenges relating to green agriculture.
Army Commander General Shavendra Silva met with troops at the One Corps headquarters in Kilinochchi and extended his wishes for the new year today.
We can be happy as we served as an important unit in the efforts to combat COVID-19. After ending our duties relating to the prevention of COVID-19, the President established a Green Agriculture Operations Centre under my leadership to implement the Green Agriculture Policy in the new year. We will implement the relevant strategies and create awareness among the people. I believe that the military will be able to overcome this challenge.
Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral says Sri Lanka's foreign reserves has reached $3.1 billion. Now, the central bank or its governor have not yet outlined how the reserves had increased.
Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral today tweeted that Sri Lanka's foreign reserves has reached $3.1 billion. He added that the foreign reserves will remain around that level by the end of 2021. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves were at $1.6 billion by the end of November 2021. This would mean that an inflow of $1.5 billion was required to raise it to $3.1 billion. The central bank issued a statement on the foreign reserve position hours after the governor's tweet. It noted that foreign currency inflows are coming into the country as expected. The statement noted that in early January 2022, Sri Lanka will receive foreign currency inflows for which negotiations are underway as outlined in the 6-month roadmap for ensuring macroeconomic and financial system stability. It added that the reserve position will remain at comfortable levels throughout 2022. Meanwhile, Reuters reported that Sri Lanka has raised its official foreign exchange reserves to around $3.1 billion, helped by a currency swap agreement with China. Reuters cited sources as saying the reserves were topped up after a $1.5 billion currency swap was finalized with the People's Bank of China. According to Reuters, one of the sources said the swap was denominated in Yuan but could be converted into dollars if required. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka has said that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang will visit Sri Lanka during the second week of January in 2022.
On the
21st of March this year, Central Bank Governor Lakshman and the Chinese Central Bank Governor had signed a swap deal. They said that Sri Lanka will be able to obtain money under the swap agreement when required in the next 3 years. The agreement was for 10 billion yuan. When converted, it amounts to about $1.6 billion. If we receive $1.5 billion along with this 1.6 billion, that amounts to 3.1 billion. What we have heard is that the 10 billion yuan can be used to only import products from China. If there are restrictions on how we can use it, then we can't use the money based on how we want. This creates a question of whether it can be called as a reserve or not. They must tell us whether they received money from Dubai, China, or through the agreement signed by Lakshman on the 21st of March. We would obtain 10 billion yuan and give them 300 billion rupees. They can invest the 300 billion in Sri Lankan treasury bills. Let's assume that the interest stands at 2%. They can obtain treasury bills under an 8% interest rate. They will generate a profit of more than 10%. This is a short-term exchange facility. We need dollars to import LP gas, medicines and other products. If there are no dollars, then what they are committing is a scam.
Energy Minister Udaya Gammanpilla says a company named Trinco Petroleum Terminal Limited has been set up as a subsidiary of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The company has been established to control the government's share of the oil tanks currently leased to the Indian Oil Corporation or IOC. The minister said discussions are taking place to retrieve control of majority of the storage tanks. Minister Udaya Gammanpilla expressed confidence that these activities would be completed within the next month.
The Samagi Janabalvegi's trade union collective staged a protest opposite the finance ministry, opposing moves to sell the Trenkomali oil tank farm to India. If they can, let them sell the oil tank farm. If they can, let them sell 40% of the Yugadanavi plant to a monopoly. If they can, let them give away 13 acres of land in the port. The trade union collective will do everything it can to stop these from happening. We demand the government to stop selling the country's resources. We wish to tell them that we will rally against that with the people. They are standing in queues to buy gas from 2:30 in the morning. People are standing in queues to purchase sugar. People are in line for fuel. But the Prime Minister travels to Tirupati on a private jet. The central bank governor has said that dollars are flowing into the country. He doesn't say from where the dollars are coming in. We are suspicious as to whether they are trying to sell off the oil tank farm to India in order to obtain more dollars. A 500-acre land in Trincomalee is to be given to India. That is what this agreement is all about. Under this agreement, the terminal for unloading oil, which is crucial for national security, and the oil tanks in operation will belong only to the LIOC after 5 years. LIOC belongs to India. That is why they are given this.
Various views are being expressed on whether Sri Lanka should obtain the help of the International Monetary Fund as a way out of the economic crisis. Diverse views are emerging within the government itself. From 2016 to 2019, the country was governed according to the conditions of the International Monetary Fund. They introduced the fuel price formula in line with that. They increased taxes, including VAT, in line with that. That is why they tried to control the value of the rupee as well. But everything failed. What I feel is that we will have to go to the IMF. There is nothing wrong in going to the IMF. There is nothing we can do without going to the IMF either. We don't have to accept all conditions laid out by the IMF. A decision will be made at next Monday's cabinet meeting. We are told that the finance secretary and the central bank governor will attend the meeting. I feel we can make a final decision at that time. We will have to let go of certain institutions at times. People who haven't even seen Sri Lankan Airlines are having to bear their losses.
Special reviews have been conducted on Sri Lanka after it obtained a special drawing rights facility from the International Monetary Fund in 2009. During such reviews, the IMF had pointed out that Sri Lanka should minimize the pressure exerted by state-owned enterprises on the country's economy. Although various views are being expressed on obtaining IMF assistance, the government is now taking steps on state-owned enterprises. During the 2022 budget speech, Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa pointed out that the government has invested more than 670 billion rupees in state-owned enterprises. He said this was in addition to 75 billion rupees spent on maintaining them. The finance minister told in his budget speech that most of the state-owned enterprises, that amount to approximately 300, are not generating profits. The Daily Mirror newspaper has reported that the committee set up to look into state-owned enterprises has requested the Treasury to suspend state assistance to state-owned enterprises. The committee had said this would potentially open the path to end the reliance on taxpayer-funded money to sustain those firms which have become a bane on the country and its people. Finance Secretary S.R. Artigala told Newsfirst that a decision has been made to avoid releasing funds for state-owned enterprises in excess of the amount approved by Parliament. He said the move is expected to promote efficient management that would allow state-owned enterprises to at least avoid making losses or profits. The central bank recently instructed all licensed banks to sell 25% of the foreign exchange inflows they receive through workers' remittances and export proceed residuals to the central bank. This directive came as a step of the central bank to consolidate its dollar reserves. Deutsche Bank, however, says the toughened dollar surrender rule would aggravate forex crunch in the country. The tighter dollar surrender rule, which came into effect from the start of this week, would have perverse outcomes as it would leave fewer dollars with the banking system for imports, potentially exacerbating the foreign currency troubles faced by importers and thereby worsening the shortages in some commodities. According to a note sent out to its clients by Deutsche Bank, an exporter who sells $100 to his commercial bank earlier resulted in the bank selling $10 or 10% back to the central bank, leaving $90 with the commercial bank. But from Monday onwards, the commercial bank is required to surrender $25 or 25% from the $100 that was sold by the exporter, leaving it with only $75. This, according to the Deutsche Bank, will leave less amount of dollars with the banking system available to be sold when the importer comes up with rupees for opening letters of credit. As a result, the dollar shortage confronted by the importers even to this day from around July this year could become more pronounced and thereby worsen the shortages of imported commodities in the local market.
The existing importers or those who need to remit funds out of the country, there will be a more acute shortage. I am assuming the central bank is doing this because their reserves are depleting, and the reason they are depleting is mainly because they are continuing to permit the government to service its foreign debt. It seems like they are prioritizing the needs of creditors over the needs of the citizens of the country. Due to these shortages of dollars, the scarcity of goods and services in the market is going to increase, and probably the prices also.
The Pathfinder Foundation, in an article named "The Nightmare Scenario, a Default on Sovereign Debt," warns that the country faces a very real possibility of a sovereign debt default. In an article penned together with Professor Shanta Devarajan, the Pathfinder Foundation said, and I quote, "A country defaults when it fails to meet the service payment on its sovereign debt," end quote. Professor Shanta Devarajan was the chief economist of South Asia, Africa and the Middle East and North Africa at the World Bank. The article says Lebanon provides lessons for what might happen should Sri Lanka default. Lebanon is an economy dependent on tourism and remittances. In the case of Lebanon, the immediate consequence was that the country could no longer borrow abroad. Citing similarities with Sri Lanka, the article read that Lebanon could not finance its current account deficit, which has always been high. The economic showdown and spike in inflation disproportionately hurt the poor and vulnerable, with food inflation at 254% in 2020 and poorer households spending about a third of their consumption on food. People are suffering. According to the report, they stand in long lines for food, fuel and pharmaceuticals. The unemployment rate, already high in Lebanon, has risen to 40%. The article emphasized, and I quote, "To be sure, Sri Lanka is not Lebanon," end quote. It added that the many similarities in both countries' circumstances before 2020 and Lebanon's horrifying experience post-default point to one conclusion: Sri Lanka should avoid a sovereign debt default at all cost.
Still in local news, Justice Minister Ali Sabri has instructed the Justice Secretary to revoke the bill on the prohibition of obscene publications that was published recently.
Justice Secretary MMPK Mayuddin has said a decision to withdraw the bill on the prohibition of obscene publications was made after obtaining the views of various parties, including civil organizations. We are taking necessary steps regarding the bill on the prohibition of obscene publications. It has been gazetted. That was a mistake. Some parts of the law are quite serious. The punishment is quite harsh. It can also violate the rights of some content creators. Civil organizations and lawyers expressed their views to me on this. We accepted their views and agreed that we can't proceed with it. Therefore, we withdrew the bill. The Justice Secretary issued a media statement on this as well. We will take the views of civil organizations into account and introduce a law that suits the country. We hope to do this with the support of the people. The Human Rights Commission held a meeting with the directors of the Criminal Investigation Department, Terrorism Investigation Division and the Police Legal Division today. The Human Rights Commission's director Nihal Chandrasekhar said matters relating to detainees held under the Prevention of Terrorism Act were discussed at the meeting. The directors were summoned before the new chairperson of the commission, retired Supreme Court Judge Rohini Marasinghe. The Human Rights Commission's director Nihal Chandrasekhar said the summons were made in line with the provisions available to the commission to inquire into the detainees. The Colombo Crimes Division has been summoned to the Human Rights Commission tomorrow.
On to another headline-making story. Bus fares are to be increased by 17.4% from the 5th of January. The minimum bus fare will be increased to 17 rupees.
A discussion was held between bus associations, the National Transport Commission and State Minister of Transport Dilum Amadugama today. The decision to increase bus fares was announced after the meeting. The increased bus fare will apply to passengers who are only seated. We will not allow passengers to travel without seats. For those without seats, the minimum fare stands at 12 rupees. Some might accuse us saying that passengers are travelling while standing in certain buses. Just as we are increasing bus fares for seated passengers, your associations must assist us by ensuring that passengers are transported safely only while being seated. A diesel subsidy scheme while monitoring 27,000 buses is not practical.
Limited stocks of gas are now being released to the market. However, citizens are forced to wait in queues from the crack of dawn to purchase their own cylinders.
So many people, you know?
Yes, what is the problem?
Problem? In Island, have not gas. All guys want a gas?
Yeah.
I go here.
You stay in place?
Yeah, I stay here in Melissa.
The crisis surrounding gas cylinders emerged after 18-litre gas cylinders were supplied to the market instead of the standard 12.5 kilogram cylinders. After 12.5 kilogram cylinders were supplied to the market once more, gas companies suspended supplies citing a shortage of dollars. Although gas supplies resumed shortly after, explosions relating to gas cylinders continued to rock the country. A committee appointed by the president then revealed that the explosions had occurred as the composition of gas cylinders had been altered. Although various measures were introduced to ensure the safety of gas cylinders, sufficient stocks are not being introduced to the market at present. Earlier, 100,000 cylinders were issued to the market daily. Now, gas companies are changing the valves of gas cylinders, checking the standards and then issuing them to the market. So the supply has reduced to around 45,000. It is true that this is creating a shortage. We express our regret over that to consumers. The government has prioritized safety. That is the main reason for the shortage. The new cylinders are being issued following the court order and the recommendations of the President's Committee on their standards. The Consumer Affairs Authority has filed a case with the Maliga Kanda court over the new cylinders that were released to the market after changing the composition. That case is still being heard. The appeal court has also issued an interim order on those products. That is also in effect.
Queues continue to grow for kerosene oil, largely considered a substitute for gas. Issues continue to plague farmers across the country. These issues emerged after the government banned the import of chemical fertilizer and agrochemicals in May. However, the problem has not been resolved although the ban was lifted thereafter. While farmers were issued limited supplies of fertilizer in Kantale, our cameras captured fertilizer being loaded onto the vehicle of the Kantale Pradesh Sabha chairman. Farmers in Nuwara are lamenting that the crops cultivated using organic fertilizer have failed.
ධාතුණක් විතර වේදම් කරලා තියෙනවා කාබනික දාලා තමයි හදන්න කිව්වේ රජෙන් අපි කාබනික දාලා තමයි ඇදුවේ කාබනික දාලා හදලා වෙච්ච දේ මේම තමයි තියෙන්නේ අල
දෙක මාස 4ක් විතර එනවා මේ බෝගෙට ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ මේ කට්ටිය මේක මේ සූපින් වලට තමයි ඉල්ලන්නේ නමුත් එතකොට අපි කොහොමද ජීවත් වෙන්නේ කියලා බලන්නකෝ
රජය කරේ අර හොරට විකුණපු එකට ලයිසන් එකක් දීලා ඒකට නීති අනුකූල අවසරයක් දුන්නා වගේ වැඩ මොකද 1500 පෝරමිටිය 9000ට කළු කඩේ විකුණනකට ගිහිල්ලා ගත්ත අපිට දැන් ඒක නීති අනුකූලවත් රුපියල් 9000ට 9200ට වගේ ගිහිල්ලා කඩෙන් ගන්න වෙලා තිනවා මේ
Trade Minister Bandula Gunawardena has said there is no rice shortage in the market. He made these remarks when he paid a sudden visit to a rice store in Petta. The minister received a call from the Prime Minister at that time. They have increased the cost of rice by 5 rupees this morning after creating an artificial shortage in the market yesterday. This is a strategy that they are using to increase prices. You can see that essential goods are supplied to the country in wholesale quantities from Petta. There are large consignments of rice to be cleared from the ports. Importers will be given those dollars to clear those consignments. The central bank governor has said the dollars will be issued to ensure that there is no shortage of essential goods. Our ministry will issue a list of items. Therefore, when stocks arrive in the future, the prices may reduce. The people are raising questions on whether the rice imported to the country has been cultivated using organic or chemical fertilizer. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa met with the people of Suryababa today. This was during the 4th day of the Manushyattva Charikava program. The government is saying that they don't have money. They tell farmers that they can buy urea, but they don't say the prices at which it can be bought. In some areas, a 50-kilogram bag of urea is sold at 12,000 or 15,000 rupees. In some districts, it's 25,000. How is this prosperity? The government has money to pay millions of dollars to a foreign company that sent us waste. Our country is second among South Asian countries with malnutrition among children. In the coming days, some people will call this UNICEF report an international conspiracy. What has happened today? The rulers are obese while the people are facing malnutrition. When the rulers want to travel anywhere, there are plenty of allies who can give them private jets. I would like to ask the government to conduct an election if they can't govern the country properly. The Samik Janabalawege is ready to face any election and to form a people's government with the mandate of the people. The opposition leader met with the people and the business community of Suryababa.
Let's now toss over to a short commercial break. To stay with News First, we will be right back.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
හිත මැද්දට සිසිලස දුන් ගම් මැද්ද අම්පාර ලාහුගල කඳහිඳගම ජනතාවගේ පිරිසිදු පානීය ජල අවශ්‍යතාව සපුරාලීමට ජල පෙරණ පද්ධතියක් ලබා දීම සඳහා වැඩ ඇරඹේ. ගම් මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
Welcome back to the news. The Colombo University's Chancellor Venerable Muruthetwe Anandathero convened a media briefing today. It was organized by the People's Movement to Protect the Country.
There are rumours that Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa is to resign. This has even stirred massive controversy. We are not aware of this. Mahinda Rajapaksa will inform us if he is resigning. We are wondering whether this is a conspiracy. We don't know whether this is a conspiracy to chase away Mahinda Rajapaksa. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a person who lives in the people's hearts. The fools surrounding Gotabaya Rajapaksa are not allowing him to work properly. We can see that one fool is going away. There are more among them. I feel that if the people who are not allowing the two brothers to run the country without chasing behind dollars are removed, they will be able to govern the country properly. Mahinda must be there. We wish to tell Mahinda to support his brother in running the country. Party politics are causing massive destruction to the country. That must be stopped, and the pandemic must be eliminated. If the country is to be developed, we must do it like the former Singaporean Prime Minister Yuan. He has not said anything about it or even thought about it. Recently I saw a Facebook post saying that Mahinda had breathed his last. We inquired into this. He doesn't have an intention to that effect. I call this a conspiracy because some may be doing this to indicate that he must resign soon. We can see that all party leaders are trying to become president.
Minister Vasudeva Nanayakkara made a statement to the media today on behalf of himself, Minister Vimal Weerawansa and Minister Udaya Gammampila.
President Gotabaya has told the heads of all media institutions that he will not remove anyone from the government. If anyone bears an opinion different to this, they can resign from their positions. We wish to reiterate that we will not abandon him. We plan on moving forward with him on this journey. When you are in the cabinet, there is a factor called collective responsibility. Collective responsibility is a practice in the UK. We have a policy that is much older than that. We remain committed to come to an agreement that is best for the nation. Neither one of the three of us plans to quit the government.
The income earned by women in the informal sector in Colombo suburbs has drastically reduced following the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this was revealed during a media briefing convened by the Centre for Environmental Justice.
The Centre for Environmental Justice, together with the UNDP, conducted a survey targeting a selected community engaged in informal sector employment in the Colombo suburbs. Income disparities of women before and after the pandemic were highlighted.
The selling of goods during the pandemic was not impacted, rather it developed. But at the same time, we see that there were people who lost their income, as well as institutional workers also. We could get contact with 178 women in 3 divisional secretariat areas. So namely Kolonnawa, Maharagama and Kaduwela. With regard to their salary scales, we saw that before the pandemic, so imposed by these purple lines, were reaching up to between like 65,000 to 80,000. But with the pandemic, during the pandemic, their income sources were drastically reduced. So rather they moved towards low incomes. You see that even below 1,000.
The CEJ also spoke about the loans obtained by those engaged in the informal sector based on the survey.
We saw that only 17% of them could invest that loan into another income source to increase or enhance their income source. Rather, the others spent that on their domestic expenses or children's education or to pay another loan or any other activity. That would not give them another source of income, rather become another financial burden.
Moving on, views were expressed in the political arena today as well regarding the mysterious jet that landed in Bratmalana and then travelled to Tirupati.
Amidst all these issues, the Prime Minister decided to go to Tirupati on a private jet. Nobody questions the purpose of his visit. But this jet has arrived in Sri Lanka from Uganda. This jet spends so much money to come to Sri Lanka from Uganda to take the Prime Minister to Tirupati. The son of the Prime Minister doesn't know who was the secret benefactor for this trip, but keep in mind that there is no customs office or immigration and immigration office in Ratmalana. So why did this jet take off from Ratmalana? His chief of staff, Yoshit Rajapaksa, said that this jet was given by an unknown person. Who are they lying to? When a Sri Lankan citizen wants to take dollars abroad, a bank only permits to carry $100. But some unknown entity has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the Rajapaksas for them to go on a pilgrimage to Tirupati.
Yoshit
Rajapaksa is the chief of staff of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is a state official who gets paid by the state. He is saying that this jet was given to the Prime Minister by an unknown person. It was Yoshit Rajapaksa who spoke about JC's bag of gems. This is viewed as corruption according to the law of the country. The Commission to investigate bribery or corruption must launch an investigation into this.
Taking a look at some news overseas, Belarusian President Alexander G. Lukashenko, regarded as the last dictator of Europe, has been named 2021's Person of the Year by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project in recognition of all he has done to advance organized criminal activity and corruption.
A panel of 6 journalists and scholars who study and report on corruption had no trouble selecting the post-Soviet autocrat despite a record field of 1,167 nominees. It is the first time in a decade of handing out the Person of the Year global awards that the decision was unanimous. Other finalists for Person of the Year 2020 included former President of Afghanistan Ashraf Ghani, President of Syria Bashar al-Assad, President of Turkey Tayyip Erdogan, former Chancellor of Austria Sebastian Kurz. The co-founder of the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project said that it was a banner year for corruption, but Lukashenko stood out from the crowd. 67-year-old Lukashenko has clung to power in Minsk since 1993, rigging elections, torturing critics and arresting and beating protesters, all with the aid and approval of the Kremlin. He fashions himself as Batka, the father of the Belarusian people. Over the past year, Lukashenko has generated headlines for channeling state money to a series of oligarchs close to the Lukashenko family, intercepting a Ryanair passenger plane carrying a Belarusian dissident and forcing it to land in Minsk in violation of international laws on aviation, manufacturing a border crisis with the European Union by luring thousands of refugees to the borders of the bloc and promulgating misinformation and fake cures for COVID-19. Anyone who challenges Lukashenko has faced the same fate as dissident Ramon Protasevich, who remains behind bars 7 months after he was pulled from that Ryanair plane, or Sergei Tynakovsky, who was just sentenced to 18 years in prison for organizing anti-government demonstrations in 2020.
Taking a look back at your local news, the Korlepatu West Pradesh Sabha in Uddamawadi says only 150 more bodies can be buried at the Majmanagar burial garden spanning across 10 acres. Accordingly, the Pradesh Sabha has informed the government to find an alternate area to bury people who die of COVID-19. Uddamawadi Pradesh Sabha chairman M.V. Newsfirst said the burial ground is running out of space at present.
From the 5th of March, 3,294 people who died of COVID-19 have been buried at this burial ground. As another suitable area has not been identified yet, security agencies have requested us to accommodate burials here as the government is still finding an alternate land. We believe that the remains of only about 150 more deceased can be buried here.
And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I've been Miyuki Portia, along with our sign language interpreter Parka Gabriel via Zoom. Take care and good night.